Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Welcome back to Uncover California. You know, we've been dark for a couple weeks. It has been so busy, and I come back and it feels like we've been drinking out of a fire hose with all the news that's been happening. First, I want to give just my sincere concern and sympathy for the people that were hurt by Hurricane Helene, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and North Carolina. You guys, if you can, go to Samaritan's Purse and give a donation. They truly need our support right now. The devastation there is biblical. I have not seen anything like this, and this is Kamala's Katrina. One thing I have to say is it was really impressive how President Trump showed up with aid with Franklin Graham, and he put his boots on the ground immediately. Where was Kamala? She was doing an interview with a couple NFL guys talking about Doritos. And of course, once President Trump went on the ground, she went to Washington, D.C. and did a FEMA interview. So regardless of whatever happens, the federal government needs to step in and help these people. And I just want a real leader back in office. You guys were just over 30 days from the election. So make sure, I know a lot of people say wait till election day. North Carolina and this hurricane tells you exactly why you should not. If you guys vote early, I'm not going to tell you to vote by mail because I do not think that's safe, but get your vote logged as soon as those polls opened up. Anything could happen on election day. And if they're going to hit us like, who knows what happened with Verizon yesterday? Was that a test run? I don't know. But get your vote early. Track it so you know that your vote is counted. It's just highly, highly important. This election is the most important election of my lifetime and all of our lifetimes. You guys, we cannot survive another 4 years of Kamala Harris. So on some good news, a couple weeks ago, I did go to a fundraiser in Beverly Hills and I met President Trump. It was so cool. He is such a good man and he's so mild and just friendly. He's got a smile that just lights up the room. I was so honored. I got a picture with him. While I was there, I looked over to the side. I had met a lot of people that I hadn't met before and saw people I did meet before. But I noticed Devon Archer was there. Now, for those of you that don't know who Devon Archer is, he was Hunter Biden's business partner and actually took the fall for Hunter Biden. So I had a good conversation with him, and I'm happy to announce he will be here next week. On another note, you guys know a couple weeks ago, I put out a challenge for our local leftists to come in and debate me. Of course, I have not heard anything. Well, I did do my second episode of Jubilee Middle Ground Surrounded, and I got to debate a young TikTok influencer. This guy debates Republicans, and then what he does is he mutes them while on. Well, he didn't have that opportunity with me. And I am going to be doing another middle ground on the 6th and another one on the 16th. I love to debate these guys. The truth is hard to stand against when it's being confronted by lies. And guess what, guys? The truth is on our side. So right now, I'm going to play you a little clip of that Surrounded episode. And afterwards, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors, but I want you to stay tuned. As you guys know, per the latest ICE report, there are 400,000 criminal aliens in our country. 15,000 convicted murderers roaming around in our country. The biggest thing to me that's been out for a while is the Harris administration, Biden administration, has lost 300,000 children. Our first guest today is going to be a guy named Anthony Rubin. Anthony has found some of the migrant children. So we're going to bring him in. If you guys want to follow him, he's at therealmuckraker.com. And he's on X, but we're going to bring him in and we're going to talk about the children that he has found. After that, I have another guest coming in. He's running for Congress here in California. So we're going to do a little bit of a candidate spotlight for him. So stay tuned, enjoy this clip, and we'll be right back. Hello.
Howdy, welcome back.
Well, okay, so you keep bringing up the border and you keep bringing up the Senate bill.
Langford's bill, absolutely.
The Senate bill never passed.
You want to know why?
What did pass was H.R. 2, which again has been sitting on Schumer's desk, which actually closed the border. Talking to Brandon Judd, president of Border Patrol, what I can tell you is the Senate bill was better than what it is now, with 14,000 people coming through the border every day and 300,000 migrant children missing, feared, sold into sex slavery. Now, H.R. 2 did close the border, and that is the one that actually passed the House that Schumer has ignored. So I'm really sick of hearing, oh, Trump stopped the Senate bill. The Senate bill didn't pass.
You know why?
Because it was a bad bill. It codified the invasion.
Okay, so first of all, no, it was not a bad bill. And second of all, the reason it didn't pass is because Trump called the Republicans in Congress and told them not to pass it. Right?
Well,
we see what's like. Do you mind if I finish without interruption?
Congress does not vote on Senate bills.
Yes, we would see that Senate, like if a bill is made in the Senate, it'd go to the House, back to the Senate.
Exactly, and it never made it out of the Senate, so therefore it's moot and void.
It went to the House, right? And
no, it never made it out of the Senate. I talked to Senator Mike Lee about that. It never got out of the Senate because it was a bad bill. However,
do you mind if I finish here, though? I just want to make
HR 2 did get out of.
Do you mind if I finish about that?
HR 2 did get out of the House.
And with all due respect,
with all due respect, you don't want to hear about HR 2 that actually secured the election.
I would love to hear about HR 2. However, I would also like to finish what I was saying about.
Well, everybody's heard for the last 19 minutes what you had to say about this. Okay, I got a minute. As far as Kamala Harris being better than Trump, she's destroyed the border. She's been absent. Nobody knows where she is. 6 months ago, even the media was saying she was the worst vice president in history.
How has she destroyed the border?
She hasn't done anything about it. They have walked away. She hasn't gone there. She hasn't talked to Border Patrol. She hasn't met with Border Patrol.
Okay, well, I'm confused because the last person that came up said that she had gone there. Now you're saying that she hasn't.
An hour from San Antonio after she met with Lester Holt, and Lester Holt said, you haven't been to the border? She goes, I haven't been to Europe either.
So that was in September of 2021?
So, that's who we're talking about.
So that was in June of 2021. She went in July of 2021.
So Kamala
I would like
Harris,
to preface here that the Biden administration has passed an executive order on the border. And
because
we're now
it's an election year.
Today,
because it's an election
Trump's
year.
term. And no, it's not just because it's an election term.
They
tried to influence Langford's bill through the Senate.
It was
and
a
through the House.
bad bill.
Then Trump called them and told them to shoot it down.
It never left the Senate.
If you were starving,
it never left the Senate.
One second, ma'am. If you were
you 1 second.
Hi, this is James from Roughneck Roast. I'm a lover of coffee, country, and Christ. Like many of you, I'm fearful about the future of America if we don't elect President Trump back in office. That's why when you order coffee from roughneckroasts.com, I donate 20% of all sales to the Trump 2024 campaign so we can fight to make America great again. As a thank you for your support, I'm happy to offer you a discount on coffee orders during this all-important presidential campaign. Get 15% off your coffee order today by using the code CALI, C-A-L-I, at roughneckroasts.com. That's C-A-L-I at roughneckroasts.com. Join the Roughneck Revolution one sip at a time with my proudly American roasted coffees. Together, let's put America's greatest president back in the White House and take back our country. That code again is CALI, C-A-L-I, for 15% off your coffee order at roughneckroasts.com. Thank you, and God bless.
Welcome back. Today, you guys, I've been trying to get this guest on for quite some time. As you know, with previous guests, we've had Tara Lee Rodas on, HHS whistleblower. We've had Oscar Blue on, talking about the children being trafficked through the Darien Gap. Well, not all heroes wear capes, but today's guest is one of those heroes that's actually going outside of the box. He's an independent journalist, not sitting behind some desk, not learning the truth. He's actually gone out and he has found some of the missing migrant children. I want to play a little clip for you, and then we're going to bring him on.
Many of these kids go missing.
I've even had a little friend. I can't remember her name, but she said she didn't know where she would go.
And MVM is an organization that has moved thousands. I don't work for you. You do not work for MVM?
I'm on vacation.
You said that you were on vacation, and now you're moving this small child to the airport. I thought you were on vacation. Do you have any comment about the children that have gone missing that you've helped to escort across the country? 2 children were delivered to a sponsor that lives at this address. But as you can see, nobody lives here, and honestly, it doesn't look like anybody's lived here in quite a long time. There's kids in the car here. They're moving these kids. They just turned the lights off.
We owe a debt of $10,000 for me and another $10,000 for my brother.
Anthony Rubin, thank you so much for showing up and being here on Uncover California. Tell us about what's been going on.
Well, a lot's been going on. As far as what we're here talking about, though, we have spent the last couple of months going across the country to over 10 different states east of the Mississippi, knocking on doors, trying to find some of these, alien children that have gone missing under the Biden-Harris administration. We were tipped off by a government insider. They basically provided us with a list that had around 8,000 names of these children and the sponsor that they were delivered to and their last known address. And so off of that list, we went out and started knocking across all these different states. And, some of the kids we were able to find, and they were in okay situations. Some of the kids we spoke to, and we found stories of, child trafficking here in America. And then there were many who we have no idea what happened to them because we were unable to find them. We would knock on the door. The sponsor would tell us something along the lines of, "Oh, I gave the kid away. Haven't had the kid in many, many years." And we'd ask, "Well, where'd you give the kid away to?" And then they wouldn't tell us. They'd slam the door shut on us. And because we're not law enforcement, there was nothing we could do. So, we did find some good. We did find some bad. And then there was plenty of unknown cases. And, that could be good or terrible. Nobody really knows at this point.
Yeah, and with 300,000 children unaccounted for, it's an unimaginable number. And I think back to when President Trump was in and they were yelling about kids in cages. Well, President Trump was doing DNA testing, which isn't happening anymore. And according to Tara Lee Rodas, they're just handing kids off and they're not really following up with where they've gone or anything else. What is the most shocking thing that you've seen in your research?
Well, honestly, it's all pretty shocking. I mean, there's a lot of shocking stuff that we've encountered on the ground, and there's other shocking stuff that you could see just by sitting behind a desk and research on this stuff. Just to talk about what we've seen, though, on the ground, there was a particular situation in Florida where you had these Guatemalan illegal aliens that were using this network of houses to try to sponsor kids. So, if you try to send 13 kids to one address, that's going to raise some red flags. Despite how crappy the vetting procedures are at ORR, that's the Office of Refugee Resettlement, it's a subdivision of the Department of Health and Human Services. Despite how shady their vetting procedures are, it would probably still raise a flag if you saw all these kids going to one address. So what these Guatemalan illegals were doing was they used a network of houses to attempt to sponsor these kids. From the documents we had, this particular couple attempted to sponsor at least 13 kids across this network of 5 houses. Now, at these houses, there were also other illegal aliens who were sponsoring children. And we found a couple of kids who were delivered to this network and interviewed them. And what we were told was that, basically kids are coming in. They're brought in as young as 5 years old is what we were told. And they're told, okay, well, tomorrow you're going to go to work. We got a job lined up for you. And, what we were told was that there is a debt, or at least the children we spoke to, there was a debt held over their head, and it's been held over their head for years. And so, it was a labor trafficking case. And so that's what we discovered happening right in Florida.
Yeah, I watched your presentation, which was just mind-blowing to me. One thing that really got to me is when you actually went to New York City. And there was the little boy, I think he was about 10 years old, and he was saying, "I want to go home and the government won't let me." Why is our government holding children here against their will?
I can't give you an answer to that. There's people we could speculate, right? I don't have a good answer for you there. Could be money related, right? If you have the kids here and they're, they have to stay here and they can't leave, well, then there's a lot of NGOs that are going to be making a lot of money off of that. There's also a lot of government jobs off of that, a lot of paperwork to handle. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have the answer. I certainly don't.
Right.
we all have to be asking that question, why, if there's a child that's coming over here that's been trafficked across the border and is now in federal custody is saying, just let me go home, why would they not send that kid home? I don't have a good answer for you there. It's horrifying and it's evil. And all I could do is expose it. The rest is speculation.
Yeah, and I wish there were more people like you because there's just so many kids missing. A couple years ago, I actually had a gardener come over and he had a kid with him. And I asked him, is this your son? And he said, no, he just came across the border. I had him translate for me. And I said, yeah, he was probably 15. And he had said that, he came over here, but he now owes the cartels $15,000. And needless to say, I just told my gardener I fired him that day because I'm not going to, support traffickers. It seems to me that these NGOs, the Harris administration using our refugee resettlement program and this entering us into this global compact of migration, they seem to be making money on human misery and trafficking and child sex trafficking. One of the things I saw in your film as well is when you actually went to a home and it was a vacant house, didn't look like anybody had ever been there.
Yep, that was in there as well. At that address, according to the data that we had, there were two boys, age 7 and 10, that were sent there. And we showed up and, you see what you see there. I mean, that's all the evidence you see in the video is all the evidence we have. It was now an abandoned house. So I have no idea when that house was abandoned, but all I know is that there was nobody there when we got there. Totally shut down, and we tried calling the number on file and it was disconnected. So, nobody knows who those kids are.
How big is your team, and are you continuing to look for these kids?
Well, I don't want to speak on how big my team is simply because I don't want to give opposition any idea of our organizational structure or our size, right? Just so that only because of that. If I keep you off record, I certainly would. But let's just put it this way. We're a small, efficient team. I will say that, the case I told you in Florida, for example, excuse me, the trafficking case, that was referred to 3 government agencies, referred to HHS, HSI, and the FBI. And as far as we could tell, they had this information for years. And as far as we could tell, nothing was done. I think that Homeland Security did some preliminary research. They knocked on some doors, but to the best of our knowledge, they accomplished absolutely nothing. Right? So this small team was able to basically find evidence of trafficking that all these government agencies were unable to find. And so there's that. And then as far as what's next, I mean, there's a lot of things that are next. It's just a matter of priorities. I've never had so many people reach out to me after a piece as I have after we released this piece. And so there's a lot of interesting calls that are coming through, and we'll pick and choose and see what's at the top of the priority list.
Well, I would love to help you in any way I can. And I also want people to support your work. So that's super important. I'm talking to Tara Lee Rodas too. It seems that they knew a lot of these kids were going nowhere. And to me, it's the most horrific crime that could be committed is a crime against children. And just not knowing where this many kids are and having a government that actually has moved people from child trafficking cases and sexual abuse cases to J6 cases, I think is a huge part of the problem. I know that there's some whistleblowers that came out talking about that, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing. And again, I want to do anything I can to help you and especially get the word out and get your film in front of people. What else have you seen? Like these people that are working for these NGOs that are literally taking these kids through the airport and putting them in vans. And, I heard about the shelter that hosts babies. I think your friend Carlos worked on that, where there's just hundreds of babies in like an old Walmart. What is happening with these kids? Does anybody know?
It's the same thing. They're held in these facilities that are run by these government contractors, which I believe the reason why they're using government contractors is because it's such a touchy situation involving kids. Many things could go wrong. You could get a bad actor in there who decides to sexually assault a kid, which has happened. You're talking about the Walmart facilities. A lot of those are run by Southwest Key. A couple of years ago, there was a situation where you had a Southwest Key employee who sexually molested boys at one of these facilities, and he exposed them to HIV. And I mean, he should have honestly gotten the death penalty for that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think he only got sentenced to 19 years in prison. But the point is, it's not even the point of this. The point is that you do have bad actors in there that are, sexually molesting these kids. That's on record. And so that's happening. And you got these facilities, like you just said, these old Walmart centers, as an example, that hold these children while they're waiting to be placed with these sponsors, and then they are escorted. And this part is in our documentary. You could watch. We actually followed one of the contractors, MVM. We followed them as they are moving kids early in the morning. They pick the kids up from these facilities, they load them into white vans, and then they go bring them to an airport somewhere, get them on an airplane, and deliver them somewhere in the United States of America. Some of them are placed in good situations, and others, pretty bad situations.
And there was a young girl that was on your documentary as well, and she was talking about a friend that she had made that she was scared that they were going to take her. And then the next day she was gone. So that's it just seems to me it's torment after torment for these kids. And in the meantime, we do have a lot of good American families that have been looking to adopt children. I would really like to see a lot of these kids go home to their families if their families are safe for them and they haven't sold them to coyotes in the first place. The whole thing is just so disgusting to me and so heart-wrenching. And I want to do whatever I can do to help. And I know there's so many Americans that want to help this situation because these kids are innocent in this situation. The adults that are facilitating it, I think, should go to prison for a very, very long time. What's next for you?
Well, what's next is, as I said, we're getting some very interesting calls, and we're going to see there's a million different opportunities, but that's the trouble. I mean, not just with this business, but any business, there's always opportunities, but it's opportunity cost that you need to, calculate. And, we will see. There's interesting stuff, domestically and abroad. A lot of it is child related that we're going to be looking into.
Well, and I'm glad because somebody needs to. They can't be forgotten. I don't want this story to go away. What do you see happening if Kamala Harris wins the presidency?
Well,
not to get partisan, because what you're doing isn't a partisan work, but
no,
this disaster.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm happy to, sure, that's right. Child trafficking is not a partisan issue. At least it shouldn't
right.
be.
It
sort
should
of has
be.
become one, though, unfortunately. Kamala Harris is elected president. I do truly believe it is. Well, listen, the Biden presidency has already, if we want to call it that, I mean, he's kind of the head. I mean, what do we want to really call this, right? Is it his presidency? I mean, I guess he is technically the president, but is he really? I mean, who's actually in charge? I don't know. So it's weird saying the Biden presidency. The Biden-led deep state cabal that's taken over our federal government. If we have another 4 years, that he's already permanently changed the fabric of this country. It's irreversible. We have tens of millions of foreigners with really no allegiance to our nation state. They don't even speak English. As you saw, I'm sure this past week, there was a report that came out that showed that half a million of these people have come over with criminal records. How many thousands or tens of thousands of foreign actors have come over here, spies, terrorists, saboteurs, who the heck knows? This past week in Georgia, there was a chemical plant that blew up. We have no idea if there was a bad actor there, very well could be. But point is, he's permanently changed the fabric of this country. You have all these millions of people here that again, like I said, have no allegiance to our nation state, don't even speak English. What are we going to do? Is Donald Trump, he keeps talking about where he's going to have a mass deportation program. I just don't believe that there is the political will in this country to actually now remove these tens of millions of people. I mean, they're here permanently. Now, not that I want to see that. Yeah, they should all be removed. 99% of those people, roughly, have no asylum claim. It's all fictitious. You can't come over here and say you want to come to America, and claim asylum because you want a better life and because, you want to make more money. That's not an asylum claim. Most of these people have no asylum claim. A lot of the times they just make something up. Not to take things in too many different tangents, but the Chinese, for example, We were given a couple months, or actually almost a year ago, we were given a blueprint from a Chinese illegal alien. This was a PDF document that this Chinese illegal alien that we met handed to us. It was written in all Chinese. We had it translated to English, and he said that this is passed around by illegal aliens when they're on the way up here. And when you read this document, people can find this on muckraker.com. When you read this document, it says in the document basically how to work the asylum system, right? It says to get involved in different Christian organizations and openly denounce the CCP so that you could say, well, now the CCP is after me and I have to stay here. And so that's what these people, that's just the Chinese. I'm sure the Venezuelans have their own means for exploiting it. And I'm sure every other nation state has their own sort of way that they could work in different claims that they can make to say that, now we actually have an asylum claim. And that's what's happening. And so we're being exploited, we're being taken advantage of. And if Kamala Harris is to become president of the United States, this is going to go on for another 4 years. It would be the continued erosion of the fabric of this country. And I'm not sure how much longer we can sustain it. I mean, how many illegal aliens from all over the world do we have to let in before we are no longer the United States of America, but we become something else? I don't know what that threshold is, but eventually we will cross it and the country will cease to exist as we know it.
Well, and I see that already for the plain and simple fact, when these people do come over, it does change the census in the congressional districts. So they're manipulating the congressional districts of our nation. But not only that, it just seems to me that there's a bigger plan at work here. You look at Kamala and Joe put us back into the global compact of migration. They are flooding our country. They're using an app to fly people into our country. And you think about the guys that got here for 9/11 and they took down the World Trade Centers. I believe we're going to get hit again. And it terrifies me. And unfortunately, a lot of the younger generation that are supporting Joe and Kamala, they don't remember when ISIS was burning people in cages. They don't remember when people were being beheaded. And they don't remember those towers coming down. We've got people here now from Afghanistan, China, Iran, all over the world, even Russia, who they say they hate, they're here. And we've got kids disappearing. And there's people like you, and there's people like Oscar Blue and Ben Berquam and Tara Lee Rodas that have been speaking up and telling the truth. And again, I appreciate you guys so much for your work. What do you think about these foreign nations coming in this app? They surpassed the border now.
Yeah, the CBP1 app where they fly them all in. It's or they pre-approve them and then they just let them walk across the border.
Right.
It's the whole point. Listen, if that doesn't show you that the goal here is not to erode the fabric of the United States of America, I'm not sure what will. The only reason why they have that, it's not for humanitarian reasons. We've already proven that these people coming over here, they end up in desperate situations. A lot of times they go, well, actually, I had it better back home because at least, I could speak the language. And, I had connections back there. And then they come here and they just put on welfare. And, you speak to some of these people and they go, I actually think I'd rather go home. I spoke to homeless illegal aliens in New York City that say that. But they go, now I can't really go back home now, especially if they're from Venezuela. Venezuela won't take them back. And so, the whole point of the CBP1 app, if we've now identified that this is not for humanitarian reasons, that bringing all these people in is just eroding the fabric of our nation state, well, then why would you just, pre-approve them and let them come in, in hundreds of thousands per month? It's because, again, this is part of an agenda to collapse our country, and they don't want people filming it, because if they don't have the CBP1 app, well, then all those people are just going to flood the border. And then people like me, people like Oscar Blue and others will go stand at the border and film it and say, whoa, look how wild this is. But if you could pre-approve them and bring them in the middle of the night in an airplane or have them legally officially cross the border, then that is not going to make headlines because it just looks like business as usual. And you're able to get these people in under this cloak of legitimacy, but the end effect is the same. It's the erosion of the fabric of this country.
Well, and even for us Americans, it's expensive to live here. I'm in California. We're the highest tax state in the country. A 2-bedroom apartment here is $3,000. I don't know how these people are coming in here, and I don't know how much welfare you can give someone in order to support them. And we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And maybe that's where President Trump starts. He says, who wants to go home? It'd probably be cheaper to send them home than to keep them here. But we've got to secure the border, and we've got to stop the child sex trafficking and child labor trafficking on day one. And again, when I saw your show and again saw that little boy go, I want to go home, and they won't let him go home, that broke my heart. And to hear a child say, yeah, I have to work because I owe $10,000 or $15,000. This isn't the America I grew up in, and it's not the America that we want to live in. And so, again, I applaud your work. I thank you so much for your time coming on. Do you have any last words for everybody? And can you tell everybody where to find you, where to support your journalism and everything that you're doing? Because I want you to continue to succeed.
You mentioned Donald Trump. He has talked about having the largest deportation program in American history. And I hope he's serious about that. But, what I think he should do is he should immediately end welfare programs to all of these illegal aliens. And that will probably start a mass voluntary exodus of all these people out of our country. Then you still have these state welfare programs. And I think what he should do is he should say, well, any state that's giving welfare to these illegal aliens, I'm going to cut off your federal funding. And, see how quickly the states fall in line. I think that they will. And he can then he could see how fast these people voluntarily exit the country. I think it'll happen very quickly. And then at least that'll handle a couple of thousand, maybe a few million. And he could then go clean out the rest using other means. That's number one. Number two, we've done a lot of work very closely with the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project. What we've been doing is we've been going across the country to these different areas that are, full of illegal aliens. We've been asking them, hey, are you registered to vote? And we get resounding answers from these people. Anywhere from 9 to 14%, we find in these different states have told us, yeah, I'm not a citizen and I got registered to vote last week or last month. Somebody came and knocked on my door. I got registered at a grocery store. And so that needs to be handled. But the reason why I'm even bringing that up, we should not be giving out ballots, and there should not be voter registration forms that are in any language other than English. Okay. How could you even not speak English and have a clue what's going on? Can you watch not that the debates mean anything. Debates are a joke, but can you watch a debate and understand it if you don't speak English? No, you don't even know what these people are saying, but yet you're going to vote in the elections. It's just such a joke. I got this illegal alien who handed me that document months ago. Also recently sent me a picture. He goes, hey, by the way, we got mailed this. And it was in California, in Rosemead, Los Angeles. Or I guess it's outside of Los Angeles, Rosemead, California. He got sent a voter registration form that was in Chinese. Okay. That's got to be handled. And I think he also needs to end birthright citizenship. There was somebody that I met at the gym the other day. It was this Ukrainian guy. I forget how we started talking, but he said he was just visiting and he was here with pointed to his wife, and he said, my wife's pregnant. She's going to have a baby in 2 weeks, and then we're going to go back to Ukraine. And so that's what these people here, people do here. The Chinese people do it as well. They come over here, they spit out a baby. That baby is now a United States citizen with a U.S. passport, and they take the baby back home to wherever. And now you got this permanent, citizen of the United States. But again, they don't have any allegiance to the country, really. They're shuttled back to wherever they are really from. But now we got this person that could end up being a spy or a saboteur, God knows who, with a U.S. passport, and they could just go back and forth as they please. It's absolutely out of this world that we allow that. And so these are some of the things I think need to be tackled going forward. Then obviously you got the child trafficking, and that could only stop once we secure the southern border. And so I could keep going on and on and on, but those are some issues that come to the front of my mind when you ask, that question, things to wrap up on. And so if anybody wants to support my work or take a look at what we're doing, muckraker.com is where you can find everything, and on basically every social media site at Real Muckraker. And that's it, Lori. Thank you so much for having me on.
I really appreciate you coming on. If you ever need anything, I'm here for you. Just so you know, reach out if you need support, if you need boots on the ground, whatever you need. We have a big volunteer base here at Uncover California. So we got your back. Keep safe and keep doing what you're doing. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Okay, bye.
Welcome to the MAGA Mall. We have the largest selection of the finest quality MAGA caps and Trump caps that are made We have over 250 hats and 1,000 different products in 28 product categories. All the caps are made from premium cotton twill. Everything on them is embroidered. As a matter of fact, in the last election cycle, we donated over 45,000 caps to Trump-endorsed candidates and conservative causes all the way across America. And you can buy any of our products by going to our website. It's at themagamall.com, like on the sign over here, and use promo code CALI, and that's for Uncover California. That will get you a 10% discount off of all of our products and also help this worthy cause. And remember, it's always a MAGA day at the MAGA Mall.
Welcome back to Uncover California. Today I want to introduce you to David Serpa, retired U.S. Marine Corps hero that is running for District 39 in California. David, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Lori. Thanks for having me on.
So here you are. You're one of our nation's heroes. My son's a Marine, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Semper Fi.
Well, Semper Fidelis to you and your family. Thank you.
Yeah. So you've decided to run for Congress. What made you make this decision?
A big part of that decision was, of course, being a Marine. I served in combat as a machine gunner in the Marine Corps in Afghanistan in 2012. And ultimately, I don't want our children to experience the kind of violence that I experienced. I ended up shooting at human beings that I probably had more in common with than the derelicts and cowards and hypocrites who sent me there to go shoot at them in the first place. And that flag that's behind my shoulder right there, my sister's a combat veteran. She flew that in Iraq. She sent it to me and I flew it in Afghanistan. And our problems are here. They're not in Afghanistan. Right. They're not in Iraq. They're not on the other side of the world. And I owe it to my children to leave them a better country than the one that I inherited. And so I aim to do that.
See, and that's fantastic. Myself, a mother of a Marine, I'm terrified of him serving right now under this administration. I'm sure you're aware of Iran sending all the missiles into Israel today. It just seems since President Trump left office, we have just been through threat after threat after threat after threat. And the Biden administration and Harris don't seem to know what to do when it comes to creating world peace, and their foreign policy is an absolute failure. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that their foreign policy is an absolute success if what they want is war and to serve their war donors and all of the defense contractors and Wall Street and BlackRock, because of course Kamala, none of this is a failure. They're doing exactly what they intend to do. This is a globalist agenda and a takeover of these areas. Like, Iran is the breadbasket of the Middle East. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. California is the breadbasket of America. And there's a reason why they keep taking over these breadbaskets, and that's because they want to control our food. And so I served under President Obama in 2012. I know what a warmonger in chief looks like, and I knew that President Biden was going to be the same way. We dropped so many drones under President Obama, so many bombs that we literally ran out. And so when I heard that President Biden had been elected, I attempted to organize a inauguration day peace rally to demonstrate where we were headed, because I knew that this is where we were going. Ultimately, the CHP canceled my permit so that I could not gather and have that peace rally. But I knew where we were headed. 15 active conflicts throughout the world. The Department of Defense has failed its 6th consecutive audit. Under President Trump, there were no new wars. Our VA was running better than it has ever ran before. We were taking care of those who protect us by not sending them into conflict unnecessarily. War is expensive, not only in human life, but in capital. It has become a giant money laundering scheme. And the truth is, Lori, it has always been a giant money laundering scheme. General Smedley Butler said that war is a racket almost 100 years ago. General Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex in his farewell address. This is nothing new. The rich get richer. We end up becoming big muscle for these big multinational corporations, and ultimately, these are the same corporations that are attempting to take over other countries' resources in land and real estate that have already taken over our land and resources
Yes.
and real estate.
Yeah, I think about China buying our farmland, and the U.S. government should take it back by eminent domain and say, sorry, you can't own land by our military bases. Today,
I
we've
agree
got
with you.
Yeah, we've got this strike happening on the ports on the East Coast. Our prices are going to spike. We've got this this huge disaster. How are they going to get supplies to them if all these guys are just on strike? Buttigieg, where are you, Pete Buttigieg?
Well,
And
when you
then
have a
we've
fake
got,
economy, like our economy is so fake, where we have to import so much, it
right.
depends on transportation, sales, shipping, and service. Those are the three S's of a fake economy because we sell crap to each other, we ship crap to each other, and we service people while they're buying crap. And none of that crap do we make here in America. And so it will create a more stable country for us and a more stable globe if we start creating things here in America. And I love what you said about eminent domain. Right now in 1992, as President Bush Sr. was leaving office, they privatized all of our uranium, which is why nuclear energy has become such a huge failure for the last 30 years in America, is because
did that
private
have any
capital has worked.
Did that have
Go ahead.
anything to do with Obama and Hillary with the Uranium One deal? Like, did that affect that as well?
So I was going to get there, and that comes years later, actually. But and because of that, and so the thing is, when you talk about nationalizing all of our farmland that's owned by China, we should also do the same thing with Canada, because Canada owns more of our farmland than China does. What we should be doing is we should be creating this product here in America and then shipping the product to Canada, shipping the
Right.
product to China. And instead, what we're doing is we're allowing them to own our real estate, which is a recipe for disaster. And what it does is it creates these fake shell corporations where they can launder our uranium, our feed, our food right out of our country, our water right out of our country. And so if we were to exercise eminent domain, and this is something that I'm glad that you brought up, exercising eminent domain would allow us to do something major, which is to get out of debt. We
Yes.
have a massive debt in this country, and we only ever talk about trying to balance the budget. Well, if you were going to run America like a business, which that's what it is, it's a business. What you do is a business has a product, and that product should be lithium, uranium, oil, natural gas, coal, water, and all of these other natural resources that are in our soil. And that should be used to balance our budget, get to a surplus, because that's possible, and then issue a dividend. The Saudi Arabians, they get a dividend. They have ownership in their country's oil. The Alaskans get a dividend for when oil is successful in their state. Native Americans get a dividend for when their tribes are doing well and their casinos are doing well. Why are Americans not granted the same ownership over this business so that we can balance that budget, get to a surplus, and then issue a dividend based on the previous quarter's gross domestic product? That would make it so that we're successful. And not only that, it would make it so that we've informed voters who aren't interested in voting for people who are going to have wasteful government spending, overinflated administrative and bureaucratic programs, and in addition to that, who are not interested in spending money on war. In the
Right.
1960s, they almost had a peace dividend. They also passed a UBI in the Senate under Nixon, and it almost went to the House. But I'm not a big UBI fan because it's not tied to anything real. It's arbitrary money being printed and flushed into the economy.
Right. And we don't produce anything anymore. It just
Right.
seems that our country is making money on human misery and suffering. When you look at the border and you look at the fact that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden put us back into the global compact of migration, and they're using the UN to funnel people from all over the world through the Darien Gap. 300,000 children are missing and people are dying. And yet they're making billions on this. Where are the 300,000 missing children? And we have 400,000 criminals that are convicted criminals roaming our streets freely. What could go wrong? And it's interesting to me, too, that you brought up the oil and the gas. I believe that's why they impeached Donald Trump, because he was exposing the money that was coming through Burisma. And I even think that's why Hunter Biden pled guilty. He didn't want that news to get out. The corruption runs deep. How do you, one thing too, I want to backpedal a little bit. What I've been noticing in our Congress lately there are very few that have the balls to take something on. A lot of them cower to their lobbyists or their donors. And we're in a situation right now that they need to fight and they need to stand up against this. This invisible fourth branch of government that we have unconstitutionally all of a sudden acquired, being the FBI and CIA, it seems they're working against the American people and they do nothing but stonewall Congress. What do you want to do to change that?
I want to go and I want to work directly for the people. I can tell you I'm willing to die for it. I swore an oath to the Constitution to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. My enemies of the Constitution were not on the other side of the world. They're in DC. And, violence will not do it. I want to be able to expose it with light. I want to be able to write legislation that is going to be clear and plain and simple so that people can understand it and it will serve the people. And here's the truth. I don't have any major donors. So if you look, all of this information is public. I've fundraised, I think, about $25,000, $26,000. Do you know how many days I've spent on the phone? One day. And then I decided I do not like fundraising. I'm not going to serve the donor class by dangling my leg out there. So I am going to jack the jaw of the establishment so hard if I get elected the first time that they're going to be doing everything that they can in the donor class to probably get rid of me in the extreme 1%. But the people at that point will see who I am and that I'm serving them. And people are so tired of sending their representatives to DC to be rug pulled and then not be truly represented. And let me end on this. I'm not a particularly likable person, and I'm not worried about that. I don't have a bunch of friends. I found out in my 30s that I am on the autism spectrum. I'm also bipolar 2. That makes me a very passionate policy wonk, but I'm a loner. I don't have friends particularly. I don't hang out with people. I don't like to go to parties or, freak off parties or any of these other types of parties. I'm
Thank God.
a history buff and a nerd, but I'm also 6'2" and freaking 235 pounds. So if you want to come get some, you could come find me. So I know the system that I'm fighting, and I know that they're willing to kill for it. And so that's why I have to get out there and I have to be willing to live for it with every moment that I am given, so that we show people what true representation looks like. And if that means that they stack the cards against me and I don't make it back for another 2 years, guess what? I'll go do something else.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you say that, because I really do feel that our country that was once created by the people for the people has changed. I feel like we've got corporations that run this country now. We've got this again, fourth branch of government that seems to have more power than those that are elected. And it's scary. Today I saw Chris Wray put out a video talking about how he's really worried about foreign interference. Well, in my opinion, the FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA have interfered in more elections than foreign countries ever have. In 2020, when the whole Russiagate started that Hillary Clinton paid for, we saw we saw what they did as far as the CIA, FBI, basically targeting the incoming president with Russiagate and spying on his campaign. That was treason. I don't care what anybody says. That was treason against an incoming president. And then you have the 51 intel agents do the same thing about Hunter Biden's laptop in 2020. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble. And I really wish more people would wake up to that fact.
And here's the truth, because I was getting ready to bring up the same thing. The same machine, because a lot of people talk about foreign interference in our elections. I'm worried about the interference that's coming from within. And that goes as far back as, it goes as far back as the beginning of time. But let's just talk about the 1960s. What were the Black Panther Party really doing? They were carrying around constitutions, they were armed carrying, and they were enforcing, their rights. And they were doing it in a way that made people uncomfortable. They fed 10,000 people breakfast every day, children breakfast every day. They discovered sickle cell anemia, were putting hospitals in underserved area, and they were working beyond class lines, beyond race lines, and saying all power to all people. And they were systematically eradicated and destroyed. We watched JFK and RFK and MLK and Martin Luther King Jr. and Fred Hampton Jr. all removed by the same system. They tried to take Reagan. They tried to take Trump and try to tell me that it's not that same system. And then what they realized was that they could no longer pew it out of us, that they had to use lawfare. And so they went after Occupy Wall Street. And Occupy Wall Street, we said, oh, well, get a bath, you dirty hippies. But ultimately, they were worried about that top 1% getting more of that wealth, more of those resources, taking on Wall Street and taking Wall Street, buying up Main Street, buying up our neighborhoods. And were they wrong? No, they were not wrong. And then you had the Tea Party Patriots come out, and they were talking about how we need to get Ron Paul, the Revolution, right? And they're talking, we need to get disentangled. We need to bring the debt down. Were they wrong? The IRS went after them, and the debt has exploded. We've gotten more entangled with more foreign wars, and our dollar is worth less than it's been worth in a long time. And then we had MAGA. And so MAGA has been treated the exact same way that all of these other groups have been treated, because there's one thing that the system is terrified of, and that is a populist movement that unites the people on both the left and the right. And the second that we realize that we are in this thing together on the left and the right against this system that does not serve us, and we stop playing games about I'm awake and I'm not woke. It's like you're saying essentially the same thing. You see that there's a problem and that you want to fight it. So give me a radical person on the right. Give me a radical person on the left, because chances are we're upset about a lot of the same stuff. We just have to start the conversation to find some common ground and a little bit of common sense, a little bit of common decency, because I don't believe that we're enemies. I believe it's the have-nots down here, the 99.99% against the have-yachts. And those are the people that control everything.
Right. Well, and a lot of these people, though, on the far left, I'm sorry, they want communism. I don't want them. But those Democrats that are rational and they want a good life for their families, I wish that they would wake up. I think that one of our biggest problems right now is a media that lies to the American people. I mean, blatantly lies to the American people without accountability. And that's why in 2020, I was censored, I was banned, and I'm so grateful for Elon Musk buying X, because they can't silence us right now. But if we don't win this election, I think that's over. They're going to come after him legally. They already are. And we have such an opportunity right now with people like you, with Elon Musk going to be the Department of Government Efficiency. Oh my God, they've got to be trembling in their boots. For him to go through our money with a fine-tooth comb. RFK taking on Big Farmer, heading the HHS. You guys, that's two Democrats that became a Republican, noticing that we've got a problem with the New World Order, World Economic Forum, that with BRICS starting up, where they want to get rid of our currency being the main currency of the world. If this happens, our lives are over. And then we have Donald Trump, who they cannot buy, so they're now trying to kill. The information that's been hidden from us on the first assassination. And, you know, it was funny, not funny, that the second attempt, the government decided it was a good idea to put out the $150,000 bounty on Trump. They're trying to kill him. They're trying to kill him.
No,
and then you've got their administration coming out saying we need to eliminate him. Their rhetoric is they're trying to encourage people to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's the same machine that, you know, has always wanted to kill every populist president that we've ever had. And I am excited about, you know, not only is, you know, RFK a former Democrat, and I think Elon is, but, you know, Donald Trump is a former Democrat.
Exactly.
And so I think that there's this big tent Republican Party that's being established. You know, Tulsi Gabbard. I love Tulsi Gabbard. You know,
Yes.
people are realizing that there is not room for dissent in the Democratic Party. That is the party where opposition is silenced and you have to conform or get out. And I noticed this in 2016 with the way that they treated Bernie. In 2020, the way that they did it again, and they shut down the other populist candidates and like Tulsi and Andrew Yang. They don't want the people activated and to have a voice, which is why they've gone 3 straight primaries without having a real primary.
Right.
And meanwhile, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. You brought up BRICS. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that we need to be watching, because that's an economic alliance that includes 4.5 billion people and it's growing versus the NATO alliance, which is a military alliance, which has 850 million people. And, you know, you can make an argument for NATO having had its best days in the sun already. And because there are countries that are our military allies that are joining economic alliances with people that used to be or are current enemies. And I look at China and I look at Russia and I look at a lot of these other countries and I think, wouldn't it be better if we stopped pointing guns at one another and stopped threatening to blow each other up, and we started focusing on repurposing some of that energy for peace? Because, you know, President Reagan had this incredible program that he had fostered, and it came up with by an MIT physicist, and it was called megatons to megawatts. Have you heard about this program?
No, tell me.
So in 1992, during the fall of the Soviet Union, well, this was the actual date that it started, this program started. And what they did was they took 20,000 Russian nuclear warheads and they sold them to the United States of America for $17 billion. And those 20,000 Russian nuclear warheads powered 10% of the entire American energy grid from the year 1992 to the year 2012 for 20 years. That is the incredible amount of energy that is in nuclear energy, but we focus too much on the destruction of our neighbors instead of the creation of our home. Uranium is incredibly efficient as an energy source. And under President Nixon, I believe it was, we built 48 nuclear power plants in 5 years. So the idea that we can't do these things is ridiculous. There's just too much of government has become a money laundering operation. So if we were to get someone like Elon Musk, specifically Elon Musk, to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, we can make it so that government starts working efficiently again.
Right.
And we can get back involved in nuclear energy, lithium enrichment, lithium extraction and enrichment, of course, coal, natural gas, oil, because the thing is right now, currently under this administration, we found 500 trillion cubic feet of natural gas recently. That's an incredible amount of natural gas. And that could power all of our gas stoves and heat our houses and whatnot. But instead, what they do is they outlaw gas stoves and they outlaw gas being used on the property. And what we're seeing is, of course, not only is gas incredibly efficient and it's abundant and it's cheap, and that's what farms run on, is we run on gas and, petroleum and whatnot, because you don't have a bunch of extension cords running around farms. But in events where we have natural disasters, like what we're seeing right now in America's southeast with this hurricane, people are using their gas stoves.
Right.
All of the electricity is out. And so
Right.
they're creating scarcity in these
Right.
ways and then rationing it back to we the people and then treating us like we are Russian serfs.
Well, I'm super excited that you're running for office. We are running out of time, believe it or not. That half hour went super fast. David, do you have any last words for everybody? And can you tell them where they can donate to your campaign and where they can find you on social media?
Thank you, Lori. I'm on all of the social media sites, but you can find everything on my website at davidserpaforcongress.com, including my donation links, links to all of my social media, and a whole media page with a lot of my interviews and whatnot on there. I really appreciate you having me on. Money, of course, makes a lot of this stuff work. But if you can do nothing else, just share this message out there, share shows like Lori's out there, because we're all out there in the trenches doing our part to try to return to localism and put power back into the hands of the people. And just do what you can.
And the most important thing, folks, is we have to wake the people up to the truth. And we have to overcome the censorship complex in this media that lies to the people. We have a lot in common. We all love our families. We all want to live well. And we need people like David in office that are not bought and sold by big corporations or his big donors. We need heroes from the United States Marine Corps. So, David, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk soon.